there, and welcome to Your Worth, Your Way, the podcast that's all about helping you understand that you are worthy of prioritizing your joy without feeling selfish or guilty. I'm Debbie Lucas, the Joy Alchemist, and each week I'll be bringing you honest, heartfelt conversations with incredible guests, coaches, thought leaders, and soulful humans who'll share their stories and insights on self-worth, confidence, personal growth, and how to create a life that feels authentically yours. This isn't about quick fixes or cookie cutter advice. It's about real talk, practical takeaways, and plenty of soulful inspiration to help you live life your way. So grab your favorite cuppa, get comfy, and let's dive into today's episode. So today I am joined by the very insightful Angela Wilkins-Green, a mindset and menopause coach helping women over the age of 40 to believe in themselves again. Angela helps women understand their symptoms and create a plan to take back control of their bodies and their minds, using coaching to support the psychological symptoms, including anxiety, loss of confidence, imposter syndrome, and brain fog. And we'll be diving into how perimenopause often exacerbates self-beliefs, doubts, anxieties, and creeps up on us unknowingly, as well as the importance of self-advocating, self-care, and open, honest communication with ourselves and others. So welcome, Angela. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I know a little bit about you, but I'd love you to tell my audience a bit more about your story and what led to the work that you're doing right now.
Yeah, sure. It's lovely to be here. So I am a perimenopausal woman. I'm 47, going on 48, and my perimenopause took me by complete surprise and not in a very good way. So I was only 42 when my perimenopause symptoms started to kick in, and I'd never heard of the word perimenopause before. So of course I had absolutely no idea what was happening to me, and I completely and utterly ignored all of the signs, like we do as women. We carry on with the day-to-day, we muddle through, we keep going, we pretend everything's okay, and we tell ourselves, oh, I'm just making it up in my head, or oh, it will go away, I'll just hang on another week, and before you know it, 12 months has passed. In my case, it was 18 months going on 2 years before I actually sought any help. And the reason that I did finally seek some help was because I left it so long that I ended up crashing. So I ended up walking away from my 25-year career in fashion retail. I got so bad that I had just started a new job, actually, which I was very excited about. But literally within days of starting the job, I felt like someone else had entered my body, is the only way to describe it, really. That I couldn't do it anymore. I was telling myself all the negative stories. I was thinking people were judging me, they were laughing at me, I didn't know how to do the job. Of course, none of it was true, but it's truly how I felt inside. And I ended up walking out of there. And it was only because my mum, my lovely mum, mentioned perimenopause to me. And so I was like, I don't know what it is. So she told me a little bit, and then I went and did some research, and night sweats started to kick in. So it was the night sweats really that gave it away. But it had been 18 months of suffering with the psychological symptoms before that happened. So that is why I find myself here today, because I don't want any woman to be wasting years of their life not realizing what's happening to them. So I aim to give as much information and guidance as I can and spread information about what's happening to us, and then support women one-to-one through my coaching work. So yeah, that's how I've ended up here in a very short story.
Thank you so much for sharing your honest journey. And you know, I could really feel as you were talking there, like I could feel like that journey that you went on and the kind of depth that you went to as well. And we'll go a bit deeper, so, you know, it's because it's about sharing our journeys as well as, you know, helping other women as well. But
Absolutely.
so I've just turned 46, and fingers crossed, I don't feel like I've had any symptoms yet, but I know I'm on the cusp of it, and I know there's probably some subtle changes that are happening. But I guess one question, you said that you had like a kind of 18-month, almost 2-year period where you were kind of just like pushing through the symptoms, and we can get into that a little bit more in a bit. But is it something that kind of just happens very gradually? So you kind of, it's like the frog in the boiling water, isn't it? Like, it's not like you wake up one day and suddenly you think, oh my God, like, you know, this is it. So you could get acclimatized as you go on, and you don't always realize, as you say, until maybe like, you know, even 18 months, 2 years down the line, that gosh, something's different. Yeah, I'm not the same person I used to be. There's all these other things going on. What's wrong with me, I guess, is what a lot of people think. So
Yeah.
can you walk us through kind of what that looked like and felt for you, and how that impacted on your sense of self-worth, and obviously led to you kind of walking away from your job?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think first of all, what's really a couple of things really important to point out is that every single woman in the world will go through menopause. We know that. But 25% of women won't experience symptoms at all. So this isn't a bad, horrible thing for us to be talking about. For some women, this is a breeze. And it's obviously also a very natural part of life. So we don't want to be scared of it. But some women suffer much more than others. And there is no, you know, it's like a sliding scale, and we don't know. So we don't want to dread it. I think that's the thing. And the best thing we can do for ourselves is to be prepared for it. So I just feel like it was important to say that, because
Yes, of
it's
course.
not as, you know, my story it was quite a difficult one, but not everybody's is as bad as mine. But yes, so for me, it actually started literally as we went into lockdown, the same month in March. And my first symptoms were the ones that women don't want to talk about. And I've had to bring myself to get comfortable to talk about it, because I've always been fairly private through my life. But mine were painful sex, soreness, dryness down below, painful UTIs, regular UTIs. And it sort of did come out of nowhere, actually. It was just like, well, why is this started to happen? But of course, you know, we always just find excuses. And so for me, it was quite a big one. It was COVID, so I couldn't get a doctor's appointment. And so I just tried to fix it myself. So I was using lots of thrush cream and cystitis sachets. But of course, they weren't working, because unbeknown to me, that wasn't the problem. But I didn't know what the problem was. And I literally did ignore that. And for me, I think it was a very confusing time. And I think in our 40s as women, it really can be a confusing time. For many of us, we're at the peak of our careers. We might be stepping into a new big leadership role that can be quite scary in itself. We might have young children at home. We might have aging parents that we're worrying about and caring for. And everybody else becomes more important than us. So we just take this back step, don't we? And we become the last thing that we think about. And so we do just go, it's okay, I can cope. And that's what I did. Now I don't have children, and I'm very lucky to have fairly young and very healthy parents. So I didn't have all those added stresses that so many women did. But I was having my own health problems. So I did get diagnosed with endometriosis during that time, and had a laparoscopy. So that's quite a big operation. And I got breast cysts, which were being drained. And of course, you're going through all of that. You're going into the hospital when we didn't really want to be. So there's all this other stuff going on. I got made redundant. So then I was trying to set up a consultancy business. So my whole life was this great big roller coaster of not knowing where I am, what I'm doing, how I feel. You know, everything was sort of up and down. And then I probably coped like that for about a year. I was just probably living on adrenaline. And then that's when the psychological symptoms started coming in. So there was nothing else physical for me that I particularly noticed, other than feeling quite cold all the time, which I've always been a fairly cold person, but I'm like, this is ridiculous. I was constantly sat wrapped up in a blanket. But the psychological symptoms started to pick up. So this, I have always been someone that has struggled with a bit of self-doubt. You know, I've always felt like a bit of an imposter in the room. I've always had that underlying, but it just was starting to pick up pace, is how I describe it. And the only way that I really felt it was in my chest and in my gut. So I'm very much in tune with my instinct and my gut feeling. And I know in my body instantly when I am being stretched out of my ball. And I was beginning to live in this state the whole time. It just wasn't going away. You'd get the heart palpitations with it when it was particularly bad. And I think because I had always sort of known the feeling, I was just going, okay, well, I'm just having a difficult time. And it didn't help because I didn't know what perimenopause was. So I'd heard of menopause, obviously. My understanding, what I thought was my understanding at the time was that I would go through the menopause, I'd probably be in my 50s, I might get some hot flushes and my periods would stop. And that was the extent of what I thought I knew. And of course, it turns out I was completely wrong. And when my mum finally did say to me, could it be perimenopause? Could it be perimenopause? Once I'd done a little bit of research, I still didn't believe her. I just went into denial. I was like, well, this started when I was 42. By this time I was having the conversation, I was 44. And I'm too young. I'm too young. Don't be silly, mum. And I've got an older sister. She was showing no signs whatsoever. So I was like, no, it can't be that. It can't be that. And it was literally the night sweats. Once the night sweats finally arrived, that's when I was able to let the penny drop and go, okay, now I need to do something.
Yeah, I think it's thank goodness for people like you who are now educating women like the rest of us, because as you said, like I think for a long time until I kind of came more into the coaching world, for me, menopause was something that happened in your 50s and you took hot flushes and your period stopped. That was what I knew about it. So I'm a bit more aware. And I think the physical symptoms is one side of it. And I think, can kind of be dealt with through treating the symptoms, I guess, not necessarily the cause as you indicated there. But I think, and a big part of what you do is the psychological symptoms, as you said, and the mindset around it. And I love that you call yourself mindset and menopause coach, because I think that's so important. And I've done a lot of work on my mindset over time, and I understand that I'm going to go through perimenopause. You say all women do, and I keep my fingers crossed. I'm part of the 25% club that don't have too many symptoms. But I think I've seen so many women in my family, friends who have gone through it, who were really successful in their careers, as you say, kind of stepping up into or already were in kind of really high senior leadership roles, who then suddenly just crashed and lost all confidence. And I guess I'm maybe putting the blinkers on and burying my head in the sand a bit, because I don't want to be that kind of person. So I'm kind of being very conscious and intentional with watching my mindset and what's going on, because I don't want to feel that. But I know that it's a physical change in your body and it's a hormonal change, and that's what causes the anxiety and the loss of confidence and the brain fog. So what do you wish every woman would understand more about the psychological side of perimenopause?
First of all, I just want women to understand that it can be related, because people aren't joining up the dots. And unfortunately, our GPs aren't necessarily joining up the dots either. So for a lot of women, when they first start to feel this way, if they do go to their GP, but they don't know about perimenopause either, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't go in there saying, I think I could be perimenopausal, your GP is very likely to think you could be erring on the side of depression. So even with me going in knowing the symptoms that I had, the first thing that I was offered were antidepressants.
Wow.
So antidepressants are brilliant at what they do, but they will not help you if your problem is your hormones.
Yeah.
They won't do anything. If you want help from your GP, that help will come in the form of hormone replacement therapy. You don't have to go down that road of having hormone replacement therapy. You can do everything naturally if that's what you choose to do. But it's really all the doctor has at their disposal. And I'm just having a brain fog moment because I'm like, what did you ask me? And this is what happens to women. So I just want to point it out. As I'm talking, I've totally lost the thread. And this is what happens to women all the time, especially when they're in that corporate world. If you're in a meeting, you're used to being in control and in charge, and suddenly it just goes just like that, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you start to feel like you've lost the plot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't know about perimenopause, so I think I just remembered the question. So what I want is for everybody to understand what perimenopause is. We all talk about menopause, but you're in menopause for one day. It's just a generic term for a very long process that we go through as women. And actually, what we need to all understand is what is perimenopause, because that's where it can all go very, very wrong for some women.
I love that, and I love the bit that I know, that I can, again, I've just bits that I've picked up reading in social media from coaches like yourself, is that bit about joining the dots. And I know, correct me if I misunderstand this, perimenopause can be diagnosed with a blood test. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people will talk, or women will talk about, I'm going to go get my bloods done to check my hormone levels and things. But the bit that I kind of come to learn is like, start tracking your symptoms, because if you can go with that, and as you say, then say to the GP, I think I'm in perimenopause, with a list of symptoms, that gives you a much better chance of them kind of taking you seriously, not just going down, the medication route, whether it's HRT or the antidepressants or something, anti-anxiety meds or whatever. But is there anything else that we can educate women on that would help them to have those conversations with GPs?
Most definitely. I think what you've brought up is a really good point, because you can have a blood test. You can. But it depends where you are in your cycle as to, are you having the blood test at the appropriate one blood test? Because if you're only having one, if your hormones aren't out of kilter on that day, then the doctor's just going to tell you to go away. And only yesterday, while I was delivering a menopause workshop, did I hear of 2 women, already both in their 50s, one of which still has not been given HRT, even though she's asked for it. And the other one, it took many visits before she could get what she wanted. So the real key is understanding your normal. What is normal for you? What is a normal cycle for you? What is going on in your world? What does stress feel like to you? Do you normally get heart palpitations? Do you normally go flushed in the face if you get a bit hot and flustered? Because I always did anyway. I probably wouldn't know if I was having a hot flush because I do it all the time. What is your normal? If you can start tracking that from your 30s, because you can actually go into perimenopause from your late 30s onwards, that's very normal. That absolutely can happen. When you know you're normal, as soon as you start to feel something change, that can be a signal for you. And if you start to track, use a menopause symptom checker. There's lots of them online. There's apps you can download. If your periods start to get heavier, if you start to go longer or shorter between bleeds, they're all signals that things might be starting to change. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go and do something about it right now, because you might be absolutely fine with those changes for now. You might be fine with those changes forever, because what you go through will be completely different to what I've been through, to the next woman. We'll all be different. So we can't compare. All we can do is understand our own bodies and go, this is good, this is acceptable, this is normal. Okay, this is changing, but I'm still all right with this, until you know you're not okay with this. And at that point, if HRT is what you want to try, great, go visit your GP and you can have that conversation. And because you'll have done your research, and because you'll be going in there and saying to them, here you go, this is what's changed for me, these are my symptoms, I know that HRT is my choice. And it is your choice. It isn't a choice for your GP to make really on your behalf. If you know you need it, you are entitled to have it.
Love that so much. And what you were describing there around, knowing, understanding your normal. And for me, that really speaks to a lot of what I talk about and coach as well, is about being very present, being very in tune with your body. And I usually talk about it from a kind of intuitive, spiritual side, but from this kind of more physical changes in your body that's happening, I think is really important as well, because as you described earlier, often women who are going through this phase of their life, have the children, either quite young children, depending on when you have them, or kind of like my son's 18, so kind of coming up to, exams and going to university and what he's going to do with his life, and, aging parents and the if you're working in corporate, if you've got a career, all the noise and all the obligations and responsibilities, and it's really hard then to slow down, to tune into yourself. So as a mindset and menopause coach then, what kind of work do you do with women to kind of help them to kind of come back to themselves and to center themselves and to be present and to be in tune with their bodies?
So I work one-to-one with a lot of the women that I work with. So I have a group program, and that entails some one-to-one work that we do as well. And in those one-to-one sessions, we work a lot with the body. And I help women really tune in to what they're feeling. We might do a bit of breath work. We might do a short guided meditation together to start the session. Every woman's different. Not every woman feels it, wants to go there. That's perfectly okay. What we're doing is just tuning in to what makes you feel good. And what does that mean for you? What does good mean for you? Because what good means to me might be completely different to what that is for you. Where do you feel most at ease with yourself? And some women don't know that. They might have never felt at ease with themselves in their own bodies. And that's what we're trying to get to. What does that look like for you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it taste like? Let's think about all those things. And it's amazing when women move into that space and you can see their face, and you can just see when they're imagining something, and you see the changes come on their face as they're thinking about it and they're feeling it. And you can see that something's changing. It's just the most beautiful space to be in. So every coaching session with every client is always different, because we always just try to tune into what you need at that moment. Also thinking about, well, where are we going here? Because everybody signs up to coaching knowing where they want to be. But before we get there, we have to understand where we are. That will allow us to move in that direction, which I know you know well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you touched on a core point, and one of the core themes that this podcast is about, and that's about like self-care, putting yourself first, and that's not selfish. And for me, the work that I do is all about, you need to feel worthy of being able to put yourself first. And because, it's about filling your cup. It's about, to, as I describe it, to overflow, not even, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's about filling it to overflow so that people can benefit from that abundance that's flowing, whether it's your joy, your emotion, your presence, whatever it may be, your time. So what's one empowering shift that women can make in terms of, understanding that it's really important to tap into their their bodies and to care for themselves. And what would you recommend women do for that?
I do think it's different for every woman. So I find these questions quite difficult because I don't want to get into saying you should do this or you should do that, because I really want women to understand what that looks like for themselves. So I think where I would come from in that conversation is giving yourself some time. The biggest gift you can give yourself is time. Spend that as you wish, but use the time for you. It doesn't have to be a meditation. It doesn't have to be going to a yoga class. You know, we hear all the same things all the time, but that doesn't work for lots of women. They're not interested necessarily, and that's perfectly okay. Find your thing. Maybe it's going to a dance class. Maybe it's going to listen to some music to somewhere. Do what lights you up. That is what I encourage everybody to do, because we're all different, and that's what makes the world so wonderful. It's like we're all different. Let's embrace that. Go and do what fills you up inside. So the only way you can do that is to give yourself time to go and find out what that is if you don't know what that is. That
I love that. Give yourself time. That's such a good way to kind of create that space for yourself and to kind of be and to have fun and explore and just see what isn't that lights you up. So you kind of have answered my final question, which is about joy. And I'd like to ask you, what's one way that you intentionally create joy in your life?
So this is something I have struggled with a bit through my life, actually. And as I've gone through the last few years of really trying to find myself, and I do think this is lifelong work. So I don't think you suddenly find yourself. We're just on this journey forever. And the more you lean into it, the more you want from it and the more you get from it. So I think that's really lovely. But there are two things that have always been very important to me. One is music. I grew up with lots of music in my house as a child. My dad very into his rock music, and my now husband also. We are just big rockers, and that's what brings us the most amount of joy. But having done lots of work through the coaching that I have had, what I have been able to do, which isn't right for everybody, but it was right for me, was to lean into what I loved during my childhood. And part of that was music. The other part of that for me was dance. So I grew up a dancer. And once I got to work and was commuting into London every day, the dancing stopped. I didn't have time for it anymore. And I didn't realize what a massive hole that had left in my life. But I've revisited my childhood. I really lent into what made me happy as a young child, and that was it. And since November last year, I went back to dancing, and I just absolutely love it. It lights me up. And it's also really good for me from a health perspective, and it's also really working my brain. So for me, it's just delivering on many levels.
I'm smiling as you were talking there, for those who aren't watching the YouTube video, listening to the audio, but like I could sense the joy coming off you. And yeah, like music and dancing is something that I really love to do as well. And like if I'm feeling down, I just stick on my favorite tunes and I just literally dance about my kitchen or up and down the hall, whatever. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that and for all your insights and such valuable advice, Angela. And I think one thing that really stood out for me is about understanding your normal. And I think that can apply to any aspect of life, not just perimenopause and menopause.
Definitely.
So thank you for sharing that. So I am sure that my listeners will want to find out more about you and what you do. So where's the best place for people to find you? Do you have a website? What social media platforms are you on?
I do, yes. I'm in most places. You will find me. So you can Google me, either my name, Angela Wilkins-Green, or my company name is Green Path Coaching. So my website address, very simple, greenpathcoaching.com. And I spend lots of time on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook.
Brilliant. And we'll share all the links to that in the show notes as well. It's been lovely chatting with you, and yeah, we could spend a whole podcast. I think there are many podcasts talking about this very subject. So thank you for sharing some insights and tidbits that we can take away for ourselves today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Worth, Your Way. I know that you'll be walking away feeling inspired and ready to embrace your worth and prioritize your joy. If you loved this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review or share it with somebody who needs a little bit of encouragement today. And don't forget to hit that follow button so you never miss another episode. And you can connect with me, find out more about the podcast, my guests, and what I do at debbielucas.me/links. And if you don't already, follow me on your favorite social media platforms. I'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the conversations there. And until next time, remember that you are worthy exactly